Okay guys, we're back with the third video. We're going to start talking about how to find missing angles. Before we do that, we're going to talk about the definition of an inverse. Well, the definition of inverse is an inverse undoes something. Okay, so it undoes something. So inverse, the inverses of addition is subtraction, right? Adding undoes subtracting, and vice versa. Subtracting undoes addition. And the inverse of multiplication is division, yes. And the inverse of a square root is squaring. Okay? Well, the inverse of sine, cosine, tangent, doesn't matter, of a trig function is inverse sine. It's just sine with -1. It means inverse sine. And that undoes sine. So we just kind of need to keep that in mind. And that's how we find an angle, is we use the inverse of sine. So we're going to do a little problem here, and I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, so we know find the missing side. The first one just says find the missing side, okay? So I'm going to mark my angle, which is this angle, just like we just got done doing. I'm going to mark the two sides that are given to me. So they've given me the side opposite and the hypotenuse, okay? So that means it's sine. So I have sine of 30 equals x over 2. So I make a fraction, cross multiply, and I get x equals 2 sine of 30, which equals 1. Okay, so it equals 1. Great. So now I'm going to find the missing angle. So now this is a little different. We already know what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to show you how we get it. So we know that this side is 1, this side 2, and this side is now my angle is x. So I'm still going to mark it because that's the angle I'm going to look at. Still going to mark my sides. So they give me the side opposite and the hypotenuse. Okay, great. So notice it's starting out the same way. It's just where my x is. So now this time I have sine of x is going to equal, my side opposite is 1 and my hypotenuse is 2. So now I don't want sine of x, I just want x. So how do I undo sine? Well, we just kind of talked about it. The inverse of sine is sine inverse. And if I do the inverse of one side, I want to do the inverse on the other side. So that gives me that x equals sine inverse of 1/2. Put that in your calculator. Again, on your iPhone, if you're going to use that, you're going to do the 1/2, 1 in parentheses, 1 divided by 2, parenthesis, first. And then I believe to get to the inverse, I'm going to check my calculator on my iPhone really quick. I think you do the second button. And my phone doesn't want to cooperate now. Okay, but it's either the arrow up or my phone doesn't want to turn to the side. Sorry, guys. But then you'll see sine right in the same place as the sine. You'll see the little -1 sine to the -1, and that's your inverse. Don't know what's going on with my phone. It's not locked either, so but check out just play around with your iPhone, get it to the right place. In Desmos, if you go to Trig, I think it is, it should already be there. So you should be good there. So if I put that in my calculator, sine inverse to 1 divided by 2, I get 30 degrees. And there we go. That's all I'm going to do. So how do I know if I'm going to use the regular trig functions or the inverse trig functions? If I'm looking for an angle, it's an inverse trig function. If I'm looking for a side, it's the regular trig functions. And that's really how you kind of remember which one I'm going to be using. If I'm looking for an angle, it'll always be an inverse function. If I'm looking for a side, it will be just the regular functions. but the rule still stays the same. The SOHCAHTOA, I'm still going to be using that. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and find the missing angle. We're going to round it just like we have been to the 10th position, so 1 decimal place. So my angle's already marked, but I'm still going to mark it again. I'm looking for this angle, and they've given me the side adjacent and the side, the hypotenuse. So that means a cosine. So I have cosine of x. So I'm just going to call this x. And cosine of x equals 34 over 37. And I actually need to just write this a little bit further out for me. 34 over 37. And how do I undo cosine? Well, I do cosine inverse. Cosine inverse. And then x is going to be approximately equal to 23.2. 23.2 degrees. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do the next one. Mark my angle. Here we go. This is the angle I'm looking for. I'm going to mark my sides. Well, what have they given me? Well, they've given me the side opposite and the hypotenuse. So the side opposite and the hypotenuse, well, that's sine. So they've given me sine of, we'll call this x again. Sine of x is going to equal, what do we got? Sine of x equals 45 over 48. 45 over 48. Okay, so sine inverse, I put that into my calculator, and x is approximately going to equal 69.6 degrees. 69.6 degrees. Make sure you're labeling these because this is an angle and angles are measured in degrees. So I just want to point that out. You need to make sure that that is correct. Okay. So next one, here's my angle, and what sides have they given me? They've given me the side adjacent and the hypotenuse, so that's cosine. So cosine of, we'll call this one y. Cosine of y equals 6 over 19. So we've got cosine inverse. So y is approximately going to equal 71.6 degrees. 71.6 degrees. Okay. And the next one, and the last one. I'm going to mark my angle, highlight my sides. So I've got the side opposite and the side adjacent. Oh, I don't have the hypotenuse, so I know that's tangent. So I've got tangent of, we'll say z. Tangent of z is going to equal 29 over 34. So tan inverse z equals, or approximately equals 40.5 degrees. Okay, good job. So that's how we find angles. You guys are going to practice on that a little bit, and then we'll come to the last section. For those of you in Sec 2, this is the last section. Once you get done with your problems, you can go to the Delta Math. For College Prep Math, we have one more section to go. So I will see you guys in a minute. Bye.